pleasure of being able to interview Makeda Smith. She is the CEO of Savvy Chicks in Global Real Estate, right? And she is the author of The Virtuous Woman Six-Figure CEO Blueprint. You all, and let me give you the paragraph that she says. This is what what we're going to be talking about today. This book is a guide for Christian women who are called to the marketplace using the business principles of Proverbs 31. You all hold on to your seat. If you have some friends, some Christian ladies, just women, period, that can learn from this book, make sure you have them log in, because this is an interview that you do not want to miss. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. And Makeda, thank you. You look amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. And you know what? Go ahead and let the people know, who is Makeda Smith?
So briefly, Makeda Smith is a mom, a CEO of Savvy Chicks and Real Estate. I am a licensed real estate broker here in the state of Illinois. I am a world traveler. I can say that now, like world traveler. I'm a leader. I'm a coach, and just all things. I will be remiss if I did not say that first and foremost, I am a woman of God, a woman of faith. And so that is something that I do want to lead with, so that people know, like people will know who I am based on my mannerism, my speech, how I talk, and how I treat people. But I just want to give God his just due, because I wouldn't be here without him. So thank you, Dionne, for having me. Thank you, Dr. Shantina, for having me on your platform and on your TV network. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. And you know what? You're right. People will know that you're a woman of God when they listen to you and they meet you, and how kind you are for people, with people. And I love that. I love that. But you know what? I want to know, you could have kept this blueprint to yourself. You could have kept it to yourself and just went ahead and grew an empire for your family, right? Mm-hmm. So I want you to, but you didn't. You decided that you needed to share and impact some people's lives. And why did you decide to share this blueprint with us?
It was one day last year in September 2022. I just woke up one day, I think it was on September 1st, and I was like, every month on the 1st, I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Like, how is this month going to go? Like, what type of shock and awe can, I provide that is disruptive to the marketplace? And I was like, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to do it in 30 days. And so I called one of the best publishers that I know. I called Renetta Gunn Stevens, and I said, Renetta, I need to write a book within 30 days. How can we make this happen? And immediately she said, okay, let's go. This is what we need to do. And we began to work on it. And her and I tag team. And so I was actually able to send her video recording of me teaching this, even from my group coaching program when I launched that, and then other trainings that I use the Proverbs Woman as an example of how to push your business, your life, your family forward. And then having, because the Virtuous Woman had multiple streams of income. And when I look at my business, I see how God has always pivoted me from the time that I got my license in 2004 to being a BPO agent, to then going into REOs, from REOs to property preservation, to opening up Savvy Chicks in Real Estate, to hosting a conference. And so all of those things are detailed in the book. And one of the things that Renetta has said this year that I didn't hear last year, but it's exactly what we're doing. Your wealth must be documented. Like, it begins with documentation. And so my book is documentation in the earth. My videos, my social media posts, I'm posting different lately because I'm leaving a blueprint for the generation that is coming behind me, that I'm sharing and being open and transparent. Yes, this morning I wrote an email to my network and I said, I've been operating on a global level with a local mindset. Like, I had that epiphany yesterday. I've been operating with a local mindset, thinking that I'm global, but I'm global in the natural, but my mind had yet to go there in the spirit to be like, no, what you're doing is huge. And to me, I was still like, my mindset is operating like I'm just having a conference, in Chicago. No, girl, you are flying all over the world.
Yes. And you know what? So before we dive into this, Makeda, I want you to touch on briefly what you're doing now. And I want you to tell us when you wrote this. When did you write this book? You wrote it
So
last year, right?
September 2022.
September 2022.
And I
We're in
released it in October.
Okay, so we're in November 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You
Yeah,
had no idea what your life was going to look like.
not at all. Not at all.
Wow.
Not even in January of this year would I have imagined that my year would have been like this. Because this is really disruptive behavior with me going into January and hosting a brunch, in Chicago, to taking people to Bali in April, having a conference of 75 people in the Dominican Republic, and then a couple of months later going to Egypt and Dubai with another group of 20 people. And in 3 weeks, we'll be in Ghana. And then after that, we have Bali. And I'm like, who even told me to put all of this, on the calendar? But I would have had no idea that this was the pathway that God had for me. And you actually read to me a excerpt out of the book where I talked about, and I was telling the readers that they were called to nations. And here I am, God has me in nations. And my mind is just blown from what I have written to what my reality is now.
Wow, Makeda. Wow. Well, you know what? So they probably like, oh my goodness. Well, let's take them on a little journey, okay? We're gonna help the people today.
Okay.
So I got so excited just at the introduction of this book, and I'm gonna read this verbatim. Makeda, this is what you wrote. You said, "This book will give you the lessons I've learned from 2 decades of being an entrepreneur and a woman of the Most High God." You said, "We have legacies to build, both ours and those that we are called to touch." So already thinking way past you, way past you and the work that you're doing. So I love the first chapter. And guys, we could have gone through every chapter. We just don't have time. So we're gonna touch on a few of the chapters in the book. And the first one is, "She works eagerly with her hands."
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, on the cover page, you say, "The virtuous woman doesn't wait until she has all of the perfect tools and the right resources to use her natural talents." Speak to that, Makeda.
So, the Bible talks about that before we were formed in our mother's womb, that the Lord knew us and we were born with gifts and talents. Gifts and talents are developed as life experiences goes on, and we discover like what those gifts and what those talents are. I didn't know when I was a baby or when I was 4 or 5 that I was favored by God. I didn't begin to recognize my favor until I really got to high school, to where I was like, there's something special about me. There's something special about my relationship with God, that when I talk about him, when I add him into my life, that people are blessed. And even I remember, I didn't grow up in the church. My mom, I don't know if you see my post on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, but it was one Sunday, my mom just woke us up and she was like, "We going to church." And I'm like, "Okay, we going to church." Like, because we didn't go to church. And I was 14 years old. And from that time that we went to church, it was a storefront church on the south side of Chicago. And my mom's aunt was the actual pastor. So we had a woman pastor. And from the moment that I got in there, that lady put me to work. And I always go back and say that was my training ground from where I am today, from her putting me in a choir, having me to teach Sunday school and Bible study. And I'm like, I don't know the word. I don't know this stuff, but I had to study. I had to learn. And then I began to notice how people were drawn to what I would come to know later was the anointing of God that was on my life. And I didn't know that it was the anointing until I began to read the word about what the anointing actually was. And so there's something special that, when God calls certain people and when you are chosen, It is something that is on you, the oil of God that people are attracted to. And it's even now why I'm also praying in this moment and in this time since the book, God, surround me with the right people. Let me know who I should go into partnership with. Who should I collaborate with? Because people will sometimes try to attach themselves to you based on your oil, based on your anointing, based on your network. And I have to be very careful as a virtuous woman. And when you read the Proverbs 31 book, Dionne, you already know that, like, she was moving solo with God. Like she was moving. It don't talk about the girlfriends, except that it talked about her handmaids and how she made sure that they were blessed. And it's a part, I don't know what chapter it is in the book, but I actually say your handmaids are your biz besties. Your handmaids are the people that you are connected to in business that can be your partners. And you want to make sure that whatever it is that you are putting your hands to, that is spilling out on other people that are around you. And that's that Joseph anointing.
Yes, and you sure do say that in the book. Yes, you do. About taking care of who's taking care of you. And I like that. And they, you know, her handmaid, she trusted them though. She trusted them with her family inside her home. And it's something to say about that. And I always talk to my friends about, I'm so grateful that God chose to put angels around me.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for that because the people that I surround myself with, they speak life. They speak life, and I can trust them. And they have my back, and I have theirs. And we believe, right? So those are the people, those are the kind of people that you want around you. But here's something else you said that was so powerful. I thought this was good. It said, you said, I want you to speak these words out loud. And you said, I am who God says I am. And you said this is something you said to do in the morning routine it is the morning routine of a virtuous woman to rise early and declare her life who she is. I don't believe that we should say these words in silence and in our heads, but out loud. So I'm going to read these words of what you said, Makeda, and people write these down. You said, I am who God says I am. I am accepted in the beloved. I am a royal priesthood. I am God's masterpiece. I am blessed and highly favored. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am anointed for this time. I am appointed. I am a queen of the Most High. I am a virtuous woman. I am a seven-figure CEO. Makeda, talk about why these words, why you put these words in here, and why you think it's so important for us to say them out loud and not just in our heads.
It's a lot of reasons that I can say. I'll say a few of them, but it's power in speaking words out loud. The Bible talks about how there's life and death on the power of our tongues. And I wanted to make sure that when people pray, you pray out loud. Because when you pray, it's like you back the devil up off of you. Like, you know, you pray out loud and you back the devil up off of you. When I think about Genesis and how God spoke day, he spoke night. He spoke to separate day from night. He spoke for the waters to cover the earth. He spoke for the lilies of the valley to come forth. And so as he spoke it, it was so. And the Bible also talks about to speak those things that be not as though they were. And so you're calling into the atmosphere those things when you are speaking out loud versus just having them in your head. And then speaking them out loud is also confirmation for you as the individual that no, I am blessed and highly favored. I am above only and not beneath. And so when you say it out loud, if I sit here and I'm just in silence, there's no power in that. But it is power saying that I am the lender and not the borrower, that I am a chosen a royal priesthood and a chosen people. And so when I say it out loud, I have power behind it. And then the atmosphere, my words are in the atmosphere. And the Bible talks about how the word of God, that it does not return void. And if I'm speaking scripture out loud, it does not return void. And sometimes it can be really hard, y'all. And I'm speaking from personal experience to pray for yourself and sometimes to find the power and the encouragement to speak those words out loud. I don't care if you have to whisper until you get stronger. Whisper those words until you're able to say it with the full bass of your voice.
Thank you, Makeda. Yes, yes, yes. You're empowering some people today. And before we go further, I did want to just give out a shout out to the publisher, Sophisticated Press, just in case people want to know who helped you put this amazing book together. Renetta Gunn Stevens of Sophisticated Press. So now you said something in the book, and I'm just going to it's just so much in here. I want you to talk to this. You said a virtuous woman does not engage in meaningless conversation or behaviors that do not bring God, her family, or her business or together. You said, can we talk about that for a minute, women of God? And this is where I'm leading into. You said, don't allow the enemy to distract you to bringing idle conversations to your text messages, DMs, or phone, or even phone calls. Shut it down right away. In the book, you talk about don't mistake the chatter and the noise to be the real problem, to go after, really speak the words and go after who really is the problem. That's the devil, the spirit that's trying to distract you and take you off of the course that God has given you. Let's talk about that.
That is so good, Dionne. I'm so glad that you brought that up. You reading stuff that I'm like, oh, I wrote that. Oh, I wrote that. So that is absolutely right. And I love how when you was like, don't allow for, when I said like, don't allow for the text message, the DMs, like how I modernize where we are in time. And so when they read it 100 years from now, they will be able to understand text messages, DMs, because before, back in the day, it was like the phone calls. And so now it's different. And so people have your attention on all of these different social media platforms, and you can be distracted by what people say about you online. And it's kind of like how with celebrities, like even taken to like the shade room, which is the shadiest, of them all, which showing like what's happening with like different celebrities. The celebrity will focus in on, they'll have so many great comments, but then that one negative comment, they want to focus in on that negative comment. And so for me, that is a distraction. And so don't allow yourself to be distracted, because when I think about the scripture where Peter, I forgot what Peter said, but instead of Jesus talking to Peter, he talked to the spirit that was in Peter, which was the spirit of the devil. And he said that, get thee behind me, Satan. And so even though he was looking at Peter, he was talking to the devil that was causing Peter to doubt and to act out opposite of what he had been training and teaching his disciples. And he had to let them know, like, you ain't fooling nobody coming through people. And the same way that I always say, God uses people, and not in the same way, but in the same way, meaning that you have to have a body to be a willing participant when it comes to operating in devilment. You have to be a willing participant. You have to also be a willing participant in order to be operating by the Spirit of God. So you can be operating by the spirit of the enemy, or you can be operating by the Spirit of God, but it needs a body to host whatever it is that it wants to do in the earth.
Wow. Woo. That's deep. So recognize and be careful about who you're around, and be aware of who you're around, and always leave the house covered, right? And knowing your word. Now we're going to go into chapter 2. She brings food from afar. You said being a virtuous woman requires you to produce, be fruitful, multiply, and subdue. You talked about a lot of different things. You talked about what the virtuous woman, what she produces, but I like how you got into that, and you began to ask people, what are you going to produce? And then you gave an amazing list. You were like, produce your book, produce your mentorship program, produce your nonprofit, whatever God has in you. You said produce it and multiply. And I've been knowing you for a while, and you always talk about not doing one thing and taking one thing, one idea, and you always multiply it, like the different ways that it can affect and help people. I want you to help a business owner who thinks that they can only do one thing, one way, right? And I want you to help them to think about multiplying in the framework of the Proverbs woman, kind of what that mindset is.
So in the book, in chapter 2, this is where I introduced the framework of the Proverbs woman. I took it from the book of Genesis, and basically it's 4 words. The first word is produce. The second word is fruitful. The third word is multiply, and then subdue. When God created the heavens and the earth, he gave man, he produced it, and then he made it fruitful. It brought forth, the flowers and, the water and the trees and all of those things. And then he put man in it. He told man to make sure that they go forth and they multiply. Like he wanted them to procreate and reproduce. And of course, that's people. And so then he told them and subdue it. So you have to learn how to take control. So I took that same framework, and God creating the earth, framing it, placing man in it, but then also learn it for us to learn how to subdue. A lot of our businesses fall apart because we don't learn how to control it after we have multiplied it. And a lot of times because we didn't have the example growing up in our families of what entrepreneur looks like. And this is the reason why I'm determined to write my wrong history from learning from my parents and my foreparents before them of what has come down my bloodline. And I want to get it right. So as we go to the next generation and they are entrepreneurs, that they know how to manage money. They know how to be a good steward over the business in which God has given them. And so in everything that you do, you can take and you can 10x your business. For an example, with me helping real estate agents, I always told them, okay, you have your real estate transactions, but do you have some digital products? Do you have ebooks, courses? The same way Tom Ferry is trying to bring you on to recruit to be a coach for you. Can you coach somebody? Can you mentor somebody? Now, can you also have a membership program to where you are providing people something every single month for a reoccurring fee? Can you host an event, whether it's a free event, a paid event? Now we turn it into a larger event. And so it's like multiplying your mindset. And even when you think about somebody in real estate, okay, now can we start producing a staging business? From the staging business, can we create a candle line, a pillow line? What can we do with that? Can we create an apparel line? But make it make sense, y'all. When we go, and even I struggled with coming into the international space, Dionne, like, okay, God, how am I supposed to maneuver the international space? But he gave it to me as clear as day. Makeda, you're going to take the same concept with Savvy Chicks in Real Estate, but now it's global. And so it's global agent recruitment. It's global membership network. It's global events. It's global consulting, because before I used to just consult with people that are inside of the United States. But now that I'm moving all over and I'm learning global business strategies, now I can have consultations where I help people to take their brand global and be able to operate in different countries, because now this is where I'm at. And then not only with my t-shirt apparel, it says licensing and buy the Savvy Chicks in Real Estate. I think one says act like a think like an agent, but act like a billionaire. No, think like a billionaire, act like an agent. And so now he has given me international statements to put on a t-shirt. So now I can start making those declarations on a global level. And it's only when we get inside of our heads that we start over complicating how it should be ran. And so he has given me multiple services and products for this international space.
I love it, Makeda. And it sound and you all, I want you to catch this. Don't miss this. The framework. If you put everything inside of that framework, there's 4 pieces to it. Just keep making sure when you're putting things, is this going to multiply? Is this going to, does this match this? You can ask those questions, and then of course, pray through everything, but you have to move. I don't know if you noticed that she's talking about moving and doing things. We can't just have it and just hold on to it. Makeda, you said something in the book, and it shook something inside of me. You said that it's time for you to birth this thing. I was trying to find the word for word, and you talked about birthing the vision, and then you talked about changing positions, because it's got to come. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You were speaking about being uncomfortable. And you said when you're in labor, when it's time for you to birth that thing, you're going to have to. And you may have to change position. But if God tells you it's time, it's time. Speak to that, Makeda.
So you repeating those words, I have the visual in my head of like when I gave birth to my firstborn, and even being in the hospital, I was 18 at the time that I had him, but I had to change positions in order for me to be able to push the baby out. They was like, because they'll tell you get in position because the baby is coming. And sometimes, like, I didn't see the international baby coming, but God put me in position that I didn't even know that I was in. And so a lot of you need to get in position so you can birth the very thing that God has called you to. And sometimes we are so focused in on like, well, how do I get in position than actually getting in position? And it's like, how do I get there? Do I need to wear this first? Do I need to put some socks on? Like, no, get in position, because God is going to give you your next step when you position yourself. I was just, I got a message from Sherry, and I said, this morning, and Sherry is my CEO of Savvy Chicks in Real Estate. And she was like, I was invited to an international affairs event. She's at the National Association of Realtors conference. And I said, but Sherry, think about the fact that if you did not show up and get in position, like getting on that flight, showing up anyway, even though she didn't have a ticket to the event, they told her that she was invited to the event. But had she not showed up and got in position, she would not have been able to be even receive the invite because she wasn't there. And so if we focus more on, well, how am I going to get in position than actually getting in position, we can miss and abort our birth of the very thing that God has called us to birth.
Wow. Woo. Okay. So let's go into this. That was good, Makeda. That was good. You said you are her. We are her. Failure is not an option. We don't fail, we learn. Take those lessons so that you can be stronger, wiser, and better on every level of business and life. And then I want to just go into this, and I'm going to ask you a question. You said, being a virtuous woman requires you to dominate, produce, and birth nations. God is the new average. Good is the new average. Greatness and being phenomenal is the goal. Talk about that, because people get caught up in their head and they want to play small sometimes, right? And if you want to be a virtuous woman, talk about how she absolutely is not going to play small and she's not afraid. Speak to that.
I think us playing small, and I'm speaking to myself as well, I think us playing small is us speaking to our own power. Like, it's us limiting ourselves based on our own beliefs and our own power. But when people look at me and they see what I'm doing and they ask me, Makeda, how are you doing it? I said, girl, I don't know. God doing it with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. I said, I don't know how he is causing it to multiply. All I know is that God is breathing on this 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And so it is, when you think about it, if we operate in our own power, we can take credit for what is actually happening. When I am operating in God, on behalf of God and for God's people, I can't help but to give credit to God, because it was nobody that had me to be able to lead 16 people to Bali over in April. None of those people had even stepped foot on the continent, let alone the country. And then for me to be able to be the ones to lead them over there, and for them to now say, well, now that I've been with you, I can now travel that far. I can now do this. I now see myself going back and taking my husband, or purchasing real estate, or operating a business in these other places because of the obedience of me actually going. And it's not in my power that I would have been able to have 75 people in the Dominican Republic at an all-inclusive resort, and they looking at me like, okay, like I'm Beyonce. I'm like, I'm not Beyonce. I don't have Beyonce money. And so nobody but God did that, and I can only give him the credit because that was bigger than me. Egypt and Dubai is bigger than me. Ghana is bigger than me. And even though I have like this nervousness as it relates to going to Ghana, but I know that it's my destiny. And once I get there, there's going to be something else birthed on the soil. And from there, it's going to be something else that's going to birth for 2024. I don't know what all of that looks like, but it's bigger than me, meaning that God is in control, and it's nothing that I can do within my own power, because if it was up to me, I would play small. I would operate in for my comfortability. But where he has me at now, it's got me up. Like, okay, what are we doing now? Like, where are we going? And so it's just disrupting everything that I thought that I would be doing. And I went to my great aunt's house, you know, the one who was my pastor. I went over her house on Sunday, and I took a picture of her. I said, this lady is just chilling in this chair, rocking back and forth, 91 years old. I said, Lord, how come I just can't sit in the chair and just be, she ain't got a care in the world. Like, you know, she ain't got a care in the world. And I said, that has to be so refreshing to just be able to sit. But I wasn't called to sit, Dionne. I wasn't
Not
called
yet.
to sit. Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Not yet. That's exactly right. Not yet.
I love it. I love your obedience to him. I love that. And you do it. And that the conference in Punta Cana, I mean Dominican Republic, it was amazing. It was a good time. I really enjoyed myself, and we really had a good time. Um I in the book you talk about the virtuous woman, combining her creativity in the works of her hands, and her profit affords her the opportunity to invest in even more real estate to better her family and her business. So just continuing to go. And you mentioned some earlier in our conversation. You talked about, managing money, and you go into it in quite detail here. You talked about your lessons that you wanted to share with everyone. So you definitely have to pick up this book, because it's definitely in here. But this is something, it's a quote that I want you to speak to, because we used to talk about this years ago, and this was your how you would talk about stuff. You
Mm-hmm.
said, I lost control chasing the bag. Like the Proverbs 31 woman, the key to building real wealth is taking your earnings and reinvesting them into your business, acquiring other assets, and creating fewer liabilities. And you say, here's what I mean. Once I built my income from 30,000 a year to 30,000 a month, I increased my expenses right along with that.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow, um, we learn these lessons, and they're painful. They are painful, and sometimes it takes years to get from them in the physical, but mentally you can learn quickly and
Yeah.
move from that place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But talk about that, Makeda. I just want you to spend just a little bit of time about that, because um, more money, I believe, based on the things that I read and the
Mm-hmm.
things that I witness, more commerce, more money is exchanging in when people's lives than ever before, especially with entrepreneurship in the 1099 world, right? Where you're getting 100% of your monies. It's going to feel like a whole lot more, because it is,
Mm-hmm.
versus the W-2 person, right? So
Yeah.
talk to how that mindset has to shift, and just kind of talk about that, and really wrapping it around being a virtuous woman and sticking with the Proverbs 31.
So I'm glad you read that, Dionne, because my thing since I started this and like living out loud, when I got on social media, is to be open and honest and very transparent as it relates to what I'm going through. So like I remember sharing from the very beginning that my husband and I, when we were making six figures as an REO broker, that we ended up in IRS debt and being on a payment plan to pay the IRS back just from failing to file taxes. And so it was something very important when I started Savvy Chicks in Real Estate to tell the agents to make sure you put away a certain amount of money per month, per quarter, because I didn't think about it. Even when I made like my first 36,000, I was like, I gotta do what? I didn't have any sense of entrepreneurship. And so years later, fast forward, being with Savvy Chicks in Real Estate, I was overspending because I wanted to make sure that I over delivered. I gave more value, and I was always undercutting my prices and saying, oh, you know what? You can come to this event for free. Oh, don't worry about it. Let me create you a 50% off coupon. Where businesses can't be profitable operating in that manner. And so I had to learn how to not operate to where I'm giving everything away. And I have to think about my self-worth. And even my friends today, which I love them dearly, tell me, Makeda, you are a big deal. Like, you have accomplished a lot. And for people do want to work with you, they do want to work with you, at this price. You don't recognize who you are. So I have those people that are around me, Dionne, that pour into me as much as I pour into them. And so I wanted to have that in the book for any entrepreneur that will struggle with their taxes, that will struggle with money management, because I did come from a family to where I always tell the story that, and I'm not going to say it's not my mom, but it was my dad. And so I always say my dad taught me how to hustle. He taught me how to have multiple streams of income because he was a musician. He fixed copy machines on the side. He also was an employee that worked with fixing copy machines. He was in a band. He played the church organ. So my daddy had multiple streams, of income. And so I learned that early on from him, but I didn't learn about money management. And so that's the thing that I want to pass on to my children and then children's children in a future generation, so that they don't squander the blessings. And I'll say this too, that my grandfather, he bought a property, a multifamily. I think y'all had this in Wisconsin too, like a multifamily unit. It was 2 units where we stayed on the first floor, then family stayed on the second. We had a finished basement, and he left that after he passed. But our family lost it. And I believe it was because of not being able to manage money. So there are things that pass down through your bloodline that you don't even know that this is coming from maybe 100 years ago or 50 years ago, and it comes down, and you have to be the one to say, not today, not on my watch, not through my bloodline, not anymore. And so this is the reason why I also believe that I go through so much being on the front line, because this is going to end with this generation, and it's not going past me, because we are going to get this right.
I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Legacy. That's all we're talking about now. It's different conversations happening at the kitchen table, right? We're not talking about soap operas and the newest record. We're talking about legacy and bloodline, right? And breaking old habits that have gone through our family. So listen to this. This is something else. A lot of people, they're thinking about getting into business and like, oh my gosh, she's doing it. She's doing this. I have candles and she has candles. I don't know, if I have a space there. In your book, this is what you say, and this was so powerful. You said, whatever industry you're in, regardless whether or not it's saturated, you can still get into that industry and surpass them, because that's what the world says about us. I have latched on to the word infiltrate. So it literally means I'm going into places I have never been before, because God said he will make my name great before many nations. That's us, women of God. What were you thinking about that, Makeda? Because it sounds like at some point you were thinking about doing something and somebody must have told you, girl, everybody's doing that. And you were like, what God has for me, he has for me.
Yeah, I think that it was in real estate. So people are always talking about how, with real estate agents, that is saturated, and how am I going to be successful if the market is saturated? Well, if you take a certain amount of agents in any state, it's only the top percent, because I remember being a part of the top 1% top producers in the industry. And I was able to be top producer in the first 3, not the first 3 years, in 3 years in a row. I think it was 09, 10, and then 11. But for me, I'm always telling people it don't matter how saturated your market is, because God has a way of setting you apart. He has a way of making sure that whatever is meant for you, it will be for you. And it's even why on the international scale, you will find some women that are don't want to tell you the information as it relates to getting into their country or tapping into their network, because they have a crab in the barrel mentality that they don't want you to taint their business or come over and have a piece of their business, and they want to gatekeep. And so for me, when you operate in Christ and when you operate in God, there is no gatekeeping, because the same way that God gives it to you, he would give it to another person. The same way he gave it to you, he want it to be you to pass it on. When you think about the Bible and Jesus teaching the disciples, he said greater works. Like, y'all think I'm doing something great, but greater work shall you do. And so if you think Makeda is doing something great, greater work shall the people who I am leading over here into these other territories like Ghana, like DR, like I think I'm almost at maybe 100 women that I have already, and men and women now, that I have already introduced to Keller Williams Punta Cana, and have introduced to Aquia Properties, which is over in Ghana. And these people are signing up. And so it's me saying, hey, I got this opportunity. Let me share this opportunity with you. Hey, it's me. I'm going to Ghana and I'm going to Kenya. You want to come with me? We're going to Jamaica. We're going to learn about how to purchase, property over here in Ocho Rios. Do you want to come with us? And people are saying yes. They're paying and they're investing. One of the things that people are going to invest in any market is going to be to educate themselves and to also be able to invest in real estate, because people want to be able to make money in this downturn. And I would also say that in every downturn, God will still see a way to take care of those who are called to him.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. Here's when we were talking about the birthing position, right? This is what you said in the book, and I'm gonna share this with them because I thought this was so good. You said, get in your birthing position, virtuous woman, because something great is coming. He said, then you talked about changing position. And you also told them, don't you dare quit. Don't you dare give up on the woman of God. And guys, after every single chapter, she has some thought-provoking questions after every chapter for you to really dive into and really, really dig a little bit deeper. And so I'm gonna move on. Let's talk about the multiple streams of income. I'm about the multiple streams of income, and I believe that you should have multiple streams of income in not just one industry, but in more than one industry, right? This is what you said. You said, as a virtuous woman, she has many side hustles that create multiple streams of income. You said side hustles build muscle. And then I'm going to read this and I'm going to ask you a question. You said, when I grew in grace, and I like that. You said, when I grew in grace, wisdom, and confidence, I learned other ways to produce wealth. I learned to work vigorously with my hands and my mind. And then you listed over the years the multiple streams of income that you created. And I want you to talk about the multiple streams of income that you did. If you can kind of list them quickly, and the reason I want you to do this is I want people to really see, like, you really should be having more than one stream of income. And then I want you to talk about, because I'm looking at this list and this list needs to be updated. I want you to talk about the things that you've added to your multiple streams of income. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and sharing that with us.
You name some of the things. What did I list, Dionne?
Oh, I'll go down the list for you really quickly. Scale to 7 figures, a playbook, business consultations and consulting services, licensed and unbothered, book busy and blessed, intensive strategy session, the virtuous woman, 7-figure CEO blueprint book, savvy chicks in real estate t-shirts, savvy luxe boutique, Savvy Chicks in Real Estate Templates, Savvy Chicks in Real Estate Social Mansion, the Social Penthouse, the 7-figure CEO coaching program, marketing and branding services, master classes, Savvy Chicks in Real Estate Academy of courses. And then now you've added to that list the international, come on, with the international.
So the international retreats, I had also created an international bundle kit for international agents, because a lot of them say they don't know what to post, what to say, how to get leads, how to generate. And so I created something for them to do just that. And so anytime that God moves you in a new direction, you will look at a direction and see like what's missing, and then create the service or product that's going to fill in the gap. And so having the international retreats, that's one of the things that I was able to add. I also started hosting brunches across the state. Like, we stopped when I got busy with the retreats, but it's something that God had me to kick off in Chicago. And then we began to host those. I even remember hosting last year, it was quarterly boardroom meetings. And so I had boardroom meetings with CEOs. And so it's always something that God would give you in order to be able to create a product. Since then, I've created another playbook. It's the International Real Estate Playbook. Like, how do you get started with international real estate? How do you decide which countries you want to work in? And so I created that ebook. I can't think of what else that I created, but I know I have a new consultation that says from vision to execution, because a lot of people have the vision, but they don't execute. And so now it's vision to execution. And so that's one of the things that I want to hone in on, so that people can get their visions out of their head and actually into reality. I have a mastermind for investors coming up, launching in 2024, because now I know that if we're traveling, we're investing, we need to be investing as a group. So that will be launching in 2024. I also have a new international society that will be launching hopefully in December of this year, but it's going to help the international aid. And it's not just agents in the United States like how the previous program is. It's agents all around the world that will be able to participate and build off of the relationships that we are going into these international streets and recruiting, so that if we bring a developer into our membership group and you're able to work with them, you're able to negotiate your commission split with them. We've already went and did the work, but now we're bringing them into our global network. And then I'm also giving people what they should post and say as it relates to international real estate, and then bringing in, because before we would bring in trainers from around the country, but now it's trainers from all over the world in multiple countries. And so I can't wait to launch that membership program. And then of course, a new apparel line, because now mindsets have shifted. We need to be wearing global and international on our chest, so that when we are on the boat, when we are on the excursions, people are asking us, well, what is that international real estate about? What do you mean building legacies? What do you mean earning different revenues in different continents, countries, and currencies?
Okay, I love it. I love it, Makeda. And then I know that you're going to share with your network of.
You are on mute, Dionne.
I'm sorry, my paper got on there. Sorry about that. And then also just whatever, it sounds like you have a whole nother industry as well. And we'll be touching on that soon, I'm sure, with the network about traveling and how we can make money from doing that as well. Like this is everything. I'm just listening to you. And guys, I want her to share the multiple streams of income and how many she has, only because we no longer can just do one thing. It's very, very important that we have leverage and residual income. And we have gifts that are inside of us that we were born with. And all we have to do is tap into them. And then I want to go, wow, it's so much, Makeda. I'm trying to get through this, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to make it through all of it. This is something. You talked about execution, right? And that's been my journey. I've been really like, nope, I have to execute, finish it. And in the book, you talk about, to execute a virtuous woman, you must know how to sell. Talk about selling, because a lot of people, they get afraid of the word sell. They don't want to say, I'm selling something, but you are, and you're sold to every single day, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that, because you really talk about what you can share for no cost, and what you should be selling as well.
I had to put the two different versions inside of the book, because I remember agents asking me like, okay, Makeda, what should I charge for this? And I'm like, oh no, you don't charge for that, but can I charge for this? Yes, charge for that. And so people just trying to figure out, okay, well, what should I do for free? And then what should I charge for? And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we were clear on, like early on, is that we do want to charge. And so with Savvy Chicks in Real Estate, we were taught, not to charge for a lot of things. Whereas those days, like, it's over, because we went to school, we paid a whole bunch in dues. So people don't know that we pay. We have to adhere to a lot of education and training. And so people don't know that, like when we went to school initially, now we have to keep up with continuing education. We have to keep up with the ethics training. Like we have to take that like every 2 years to make sure that we are acting ethical when it comes to our clients. And so for me, I wanted it to be very important that from the very beginning that people knew that they can charge their worth for the services, the gifts and talents that they had. I remember earlier when you said that about working with my hands and using my intellect in order to be able to make money. It was the first time that I created a course because I needed money to send my son back to school. And I said, what can I do, Lord? And I created a course. I forget what the first course was, but it was the very first one, and people bought it for $50. And I was like, oh, I said, well, maybe it was a mistake. And I kept promoting it. More people bought the actual course. And I said, okay, well, what's the next course that I can create? And so like I began to have a system from every masterclass that I would charge. I would then convert that same masterclass into an actual course. And then I would use that to put into my Savvy Chicks and Real Estate Academy, to where people would be able to come and watch the replay and get additional training just from me being able to do that. And so I would say to everyone on here, like, charge your worth. And I think that people ask me about imposter syndrome all the time. You're not the only one that has imposter syndrome. I also talk about it like with me on every level. I also deal and battle with imposter syndrome because here I am out here in these international streets and I'm new to this. And so I have imposter syndrome when it comes to going to all these different countries. When I had to go a couple of weeks ago, Dionne, and I met somebody, made it happen to where I was able to meet the former president of Ghana. And I went before him and I stood in a room with these other magistrates and dignitaries. And I said, hey, we're hosting a retreat, in Ghana in December. And we want to know, as investors that are coming over to, buy in the land, what are the incentives and benefits for us buying in the land? So now I'm sitting here like, oh, I'm asking some government type questions now. And so it was a little bit intimidating, but I stood up, I spoke. Even though I was so nervous in my stomach, I still moved. I still positioned myself. I still went forth and did what God called me to do. And then when I put it on social media, people were like, oh my God, like they were able to see me in a different light because here I am now going before these people. And so I want to tell everyone out there, do not be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. And if you are afraid, do it afraid and scared anyway, like I have done for many, many years.
Oh, thank you for that, Makeda. That is so good. And then in the book, you do talk about, you say the virtuous woman was a woman of God who understood the minute that the ministry of her gifts was free. So she gave to the poor, but the marketplace side of the church had administration, it had bills, it had other things, it had expenses. So she knew that she had to sell, right? So it's okay. We can still be in alignment, right? And Makeda, as we close out, I really, I know that a lot of people struggle with social media and being on social media, and they'll get off of social media, like totally disappear from social media. Speak briefly to how you can stay in your place as in your Proverbs woman, the virtuous woman, run your business on social media and not have to and just what do I want to say, how it can hurt your business to get offline, to close the doors, basically. A lot of people struggle with that because they'll tell you, oh, I'm going on a sabbatical. And the first thing that they do is they sabbatical off of social media.
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age, I don't think that that's a wise choice. So speak to that, please.
Yeah, I think that they can take their sabbatical off of social media, because when God tells you to do something, you just gotta do it.
Yeah.
But they can have somebody on their team that can still run their page and have a presence on social media. And it doesn't have to be anybody that you're paying like, $2,000 or $2,500 per month to run your social media. You can have a marketing VA that you can be paying overseas like $9, $10 an hour to help run your social media page so that you have a presence on your page. People have also built up their brand so well that when they do take a sabbatical or they leave for 2 weeks or whatever, the book of business is still there because they did the work while they were there, and then it still spilled over when they weren't online. And so I would say for anyone who is thinking about social media versus like non-social media marketing techniques, I have always said that there is a both and strategy. So even in international real estate, we got a national strategy and an international strategy. For social media, you need to have a digital marketing strategy, and then you need to have a offline marketing strategy as it relates to your business and showing up in places where your ideal client is, online and offline. And so you just have to create that equal balance so that you can make sure that you are going after your target audience. Right now, the name of the game is collaborations. It's going live with people. It's like seeing who you can partner with to co-host an event, whether it is online, offline. I was just talking to my girlfriend, Rosina, the biz lawyer. She was like, what can we do in March for Women's History Month? So now we got something that's going to be coming together for Women's History Month. So I want you to start thinking about right now, ladies and gentlemen that may be watching this, who can you partner with in this season as you go into 2024 to where you can do some things together. We even talked about it as it relates to investing in international real estate in DR and in Ghana, that if you, let's say, had $1,000 reservation fee that you had to put down for a deposit, well, okay, what helps with that? If you got a biz bestie or a friend or a family member, you put down 1,000, but now y'all splitting it, it's 500 each. If you have 4 friends go in, it's 250, and you're making it possible to be able to do it and get your foot in the door. Because once you do it, y'all, it positions you. We talk about positioning again. It positions you for the next thing. So after you birth the baby, it's like, okay, how do we nurture the baby? How do we maintain the baby? Like, how do we help the baby to grow? What do we feed the baby in order for it to be healthy? And so that's the same thing as it relates to your gifts, your talents, your visions, your business, whatever he give you, you want to make sure that even after the birth, that you continue to nurture the vision.
Wow, that's so good, Makeda. And you walk right into that with the social media too. I don't personally, I said, I don't think you should get, just totally get off, but I know that you can stay on. You don't have to do it, but automation, leverage, working together, having other people doing it, using technology the right way can make sure that you're always forever present. Well, Makeda, we are flat out of time. While I enjoyed this hour with you, I really appreciate you taking time and sharing with our listeners, the people who are watching. Guys, you have got to go on Amazon. You must pick up this book. You must pick it up because this one is a good read, and you want to have it in your library, right? You want to have it in your library. Makeda, are you able to drop can you drop the link in the chat for us, please, where people can go and pick up and buy the Virtuous Woman 7-Figure CEO Blueprint? You want this, you all. We only touched the surface. We barely even scratched the surface of all of the powerful information that is in this book. Now, don't forget, put it on your calendars. Meet us here next month, the second Tuesday, as we talk to another amazing, amazing author. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. I appreciate you. And again, Makeda Smith, thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.